Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is a very special industry guest, Kelly Boaz from Robin Cook Casting. Robin Cook casts the biggest projects that film here in Toronto. If you've never heard of Robin Cook Casting, it probably means you're not from Canada, because y'all better know who they are if you're a Canadian actor. They cast everything that is massive here in this city. Handmaid's Tale, anything Star Trek, anything Guillermo del Toro does. Huge projects. I'm so honored to have Kelly come and speak with me on this show. Thank you so much. So without further ado, y'all asked for it. More casting directors, please. You got the biggest one. Please enjoy Kelly Boaz from Robin Cook Casting.
My dad made me a mug with my first screen credit on it. It's really stinking cute. It's like a screenshot from Lock and Key, and it's this giant fucking mug. So it's the... Can we swear on your podcast?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Fuck yeah.
So it's the one I always drink coffee out of because it is the most. And I would be on Zoom calls and be like, just trying to like lean out of frame to...
That's so funny.
Not only did it have my credit on it, it had, my coworkers' credits too, because it was screenshotted of our little screen. And
so
it sadly broke, but my dad bought two, so there's one at his house that is my now Christmas coffee mug.
That is adorable.
Yeah, it's the cutest thing ever. It's my favorite.
My dad also has a Christmas mug that I have at his house. He was on a CBC show called North by Northwest.
Yes, I remember it.
Yeah, and he got a mug as like a thank you, and he like kept it. And he's like, this is the mug I want you to use as like your aspirational mug.
I love that so much.
Like, God bless you, Dad.
That is the greatest.
I know, so cute. Okay, well, yeah, tell me your story. How did you get into this crazy business?
Well, I am a reverse second act actor in that I was a first act actor who then flipped a table and ran away from the business for a very long time and then came back. So I was a kid who grew up in a town that was very theatrically minded, just in terms of there was a church musical. Straight up musical. There was we did a musical every year in my elementary school, So I always grew up, doing that. And I was a singer first. So, would get decent sized roles based on my ability to sing. And I think it was the second time I saw Phantom of the Opera, because that was the show that ran in Toronto for ever. So I was in, I guess, the 7th grade and saw that for the second time and was like, that is what I would like to do, please. So I'd quit dance when I was little because my tap shoes made too much noise and I didn't want people to look at me. So I had stopped dancing at like age 5 and then picked it back up again at like 12, and was definitely too old for my hips at that point, but made it work anyhow because it was musical theater. And so I did right out of high school. I moved to LA. I got into a company called The Young Americans, which, if you've ever seen the Simpsons episode where the Super Bowl halftime show is a group called Hooray for Everything, we're pretty sure that was based on The Young Americans. It was a lot of very and song and dance numbers. And so I was there for a couple of years. I was Mary Poppins there because Canadian is basically British when you're in LA. And then I got injured and moved back, went to Sheridan, did musical theater, and then retired, I guess, in 2011, and just went elsewhere, was done with the industry, didn't want any part of it, and I actually ended up working in healthcare briefly. I went to school for holistic nutrition, specifically because, throughout my entire life as a young human, pre-acting, post-acting, during acting, I battled anorexia on and off for like 20 years. And so was in and out of hospital and realized that nothing I'd been taught in the hospital was sustainable for me as someone who sort of had chronic recurring. I couldn't get myself out of it nutritionally without going back into a hospital program. So I wanted to find a way that was sort of from a harm reduction perspective of eating disorder treatment, where, you meet people where they are. It's not necessarily abstinence based, but it is, a way to make it, sustainable, livable for people who, maybe aren't going to get all the way to full recovery, are not going to get there all right away, all of those things. So that was my plan. And then it just, with the economy being what it is, it was not a sustainable business practice. And I was working far too many hours a week for not enough money, and realized that the only thing I could do that would have sort of a sustainable 9 to 5, nothing in this business is 9 to 5, but on paper it's 9 to 5, and involves, having a stable job. I'm lucky that my office is a very stable, like, my boss paid me through the pandemic, paid me through the strike, regardless of whether we were working or not. So I was very lucky to be in a place where it is a stable job, which very rarely exists in this industry. So I realized that based on my education level, based on not wanting to go back to school again, after I think I did like 5 first years of university in various programs. So just was like, no, thank you. No more, thanks. And so I said to a friend of mine who's an agent, look, if you hear of any of the casting houses that are hiring, I think this is the only thing that I have the skills, the knowledge, and the desire to do, and that has, growth potential in this industry. And so about 6 months later, he called me. He's like, look, Robin Cook is hiring. Go now. I put your name in. Go. Get your resume together. And 2 weeks later, I started there, and I've been there for 5 years now and really, really love it.
That is incredible. Before we get into the casting side of things, which I have like a list
of information.
I love it. I have a list of listener questions a mile long, and my own questions, of course. But I'm always curious, anybody who has a past like yours, but with a creative past, like, did you ever have anyone in your life, parents, guardians, whoever, teachers, say, no, like, musical theater, cute, you're adorable, and you're really good at this, but it's not a logical career path. It's cute, but it's a hobby.
Yeah, I mean, extended family in particular was very much, because Sheridan, when I was about halfway through high school, Sheridan switched from having a co-degree program with the University of Windsor to just being a diploma program. And now they're back to being a degree program. But the period of time that I was there was not a degree option. And so it was very much like, well, you can do this, but only if you have a degree at the end of it. And that ceased to be the thing. But did it anyhow. And right now I don't need a degree, so it's great.
Were you, like, did you have creative people in your life growing up?
Yeah, I mean, my mom is very musical. My dad is discovering in his retirement that he is very musical as well. My brother has severe developmental disabilities and actually learned to speak through music, so that's how he communicates.
Yeah.
Sharon Lawson Brown, Elephant Show. We've been watching those on repeat since the dawn of time. And so he'll, if we can't understand something he's saying, he'll look at us and go, ha, 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 apple. And, oh, okay, you want an apple. Okay, great, got it. But that's how he
So
learned to
cool.
communicate, was like singing songs that had the right word in it, or, humming a tune that meant something in our family. And so music was always a big part of my life. I had family members who were, peripherally in the business, but no one who, like, it was their gung-ho career. I had a friend whose uncle is an actor, and I get to see him in the audition room sometimes, and that always delights me because I grew up watching him on TV and being like, hey, I know that guy.
Well, so take me through that decision to look, because you said, like, if you know anyone who's hiring casting, how did you know that's what you wanted to do over all the other, career paths that are within, like, acting adjacent?
Yeah, I have a brain that loves the creative, but also loves the organized and the stable. Like, my brain thrives on opportunities to organize things, but also to never be doing the same thing all day, every day. So this is the perfect mix of that. I get to be creative. I get to, coach actors. I get to watch audition tapes. I get to read scripts, but then I also get to, like, do deals and be very organized and create charts of who we've seen for what and where they've asked us to bring them back in the future, all of these things, very organized. And my brain is just very much wired. Like, my friends call me IMD Boaz, because they will sometimes call me instead of going to the website and say, where do I know this person from? And I'm like, well, you've seen them in this, and this. And that's what I did growing up with theater actors, because I was so obsessed with the theater and I didn't like going to the theater and then not immediately knowing where I'd seen them before. And I didn't want to have to go back through all my playbills. And, bios in playbills are not comprehensive always. So I, at age 12, made myself a database of every actor I'd seen in every play I'd ever seen, cross-referenced by year, role, theater, and whether they were an understudy or a regular cast member, and whether I saw them as the understudy or I saw the regular cast member, and kept that going for probably about 15 years.
Oh my
And
God.
so this was always something that my brain did. So now I don't actually know where that document is anymore. I think it's on an old computer, and I just stopped updating it and transferring it from computer to computer, but it was huge. It was the largest document on all of my computers growing up. But that document is what allows me to do my job well, because I can say, like, hey, I don't know if you know this actor, but I saw them in 1997, where they played a very similar character at Stratford, and I think they'd be really good here. Can I try them?
Well,
Yeah.
that kind of, like, leads me into my next question, because, like, there is no, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no casting director school.
Correct.
You don't get
That
a
I know of.
degree.
No.
You don't get a degree that says, congratulations, you may now work as a casting director.
Mhm.
How did you learn how to do your job?
Yeah, it's all mentorship in casting. It's, I lucked into having a boss who not only tells me to do things, but then explains why we do them this way and why we don't do them this other way. And going forward, if you tried to do it this way, these are the problems you'd encounter. And here's the way we do it when this person's involved. Here's the way we do it when this person's involved, just so I know how to grow into this business myself, because she, makes no bones about the fact that she wants us all to be able to do her job down the line. So she teaches us every step of it about, how to choose actors, how to, why we don't bring these people in for these roles and why this doesn't happen here. And, just all of those factors that go into, even the order in which to position actors when you send it out for, maximum effect. It's all things that she's taught me over the years. And it's, So yeah, I think it's one of those jobs where it's all mentorship, everybody comes into it with different experience. I am the only ex-actor in my office, but that gives me some unique advantages and some unique disadvantages. And I think, yeah, so you can come into it with sort of any amount of knowledge and any type of knowledge in the arts, and just if you have the right mentor in your corner, then you can make a career of it, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there is kind of an innate sense that casting directors have, like, to be like, yes, this is the right person? Or does that just come with time? Or is there kind of like, nah, it's like, maybe they're born with it, right? Like,
yeah.
How does that work? Because you always hear, these stories as actors saying, oh, we know within the first 2 seconds, that split second, like, yep, versus no.
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know how much of it is innate, how much of it is learned, and how much of it, because I've seen before where there'll be an actor that I've seen we've brought in for barista roles and no-name actor roles, who do a couple lines here, a couple lines there, and then I'll see them in the theater doing something that's completely different from barista. Here's your coffee, sir. And get to see them do sort of a long form acting that is more than 30 seconds long and say, oh, I didn't know this person could do this. And then when, a role comes up, my Rolodex of actors goes and I go, can I try this person for this role? I don't know if they're any good at film and TV or at this size of role or whatever it is, but I've seen them in the theater do something similar, and I think they could be cool here. And so I'll bring them in and give them a chance on that based on, what I've seen elsewhere. And sometimes that yields an incredible performance. Sometimes, the skill set just isn't right, or I haven't put them in the right role. There's so many factors that go into whether someone shines, that, a lot of it does come down to, technique, training, all that jazz. But a lot of it really is, are you in the right room at the right time with the right people?
Mm-hmm. Take me through that process, like a day in your life. How does it all work?
Yeah, well, every day is different, which is awesome and also stressful sometimes. But there's a lot of emails. I counted one day, and I think I sent 60 emails in an hour once.
That's an email a minute.
That is
literally.
Yeah. I type real fast. Yeah, it was a very, very busy day that day. So there's just because we work in a team, there's so many different facets to it. So the assistant sets, the boss picks the actors from the breakdown. So all of the agents submit on the breakdown. Boss goes through all the submissions, picks the people they want to see. Assistant schedules them all for audition times. Then from there, they can either Zoom or self-tape. Our office is, very adamant that we should always try at least to offer both Zoom and self-tape options. So, because for some people, Zoom is infinitely more accessible. They don't have access to a reader. They don't have someone providing feedback on their audition. They have questions they want to ask. For other people, that's not how they do their best work. So they want to self-tape, or they have, an infinite number of takes to get it right. So those options are available almost always. Sometimes we run out of time and need you to self-tape overnight, but always try to give more time if possible. So then we try and do those like 48 hours in advance. So with minimum, so people have time to figure things out, figure out their schedules. Then tapes come in, Zoom auditions happen. Usually one of my colleagues is in the room for that. Sometimes I get to be in the room for that. It's a very exciting time. So then we go through all the auditions. At least two of us watch every audition that comes in and provide our feedback. The boss decides ultimately who goes out for each role and the order at which we send them. And then from there we get feedback, either yes, please cast this person, or send them for approval, because the network has to sign off on everybody. Or I'd like to call back this person, this person, this person, or I don't see it here. This person is the closest. Can you find me more people like that? Give them this direction. Can you have this person tape again with this direction? Or just no. None of this is right. We gave you wrong instructions. Please, please do this instead.
Huh. So the day is insane, obviously.
Yeah. It's full on. Yes.
It's full on. Yeah. So what can actors do to make your job easier?
Ask questions. Ask as many questions as you need. I would say step one is make sure you're getting the breakdown from your agent and reading the breakdown thoroughly. Not only the breakdown for your character, there's a lot of specific details in there that a lot of actors just gloss over sometimes, and it would be very helpful if they read those thoroughly. Also, who's directing, that's not always a good indicator, because there'll be times when a director who is known for their more serious stuff will say, this role is the comic relief, please, instruct the actors to do this one in a comical way, and the actors won't believe us and they'll come in doing what they expect this director to want, and we're like, but no, that's not what we asked for here. Please read the notes, please read we're not trying to trip you up, I promise. So the more you can just familiarize yourself with the style of the piece. So, don't come into Handmaid's Tale with fake eyelashes and a full face of very pretty makeup. There's little things that you can do that just, step one, make your audition considerable or not considerable, because, and we don't always have time to say, can you do it again and take off the makeup,
Right.
So sometimes something like that will just mean that your audition is not considerable for this particular role. Doesn't mean, you're blacklisted from our office or anything, but just this time, this is not the one that's making the final cut. So that is step one. If you have questions, get your agent to send us a little email. We'll happily answer if we can. Sometimes there's a lot of confidentiality involved and we can't tell you everything that you would like to know, but we can sometimes tell you something or give you a little hint that points you in the right direction for the role. And honestly, unless we tell you no, give us a couple takes. If you're not sure if the character of your nurse is angry with the doctor or is just doing their job and doesn't have any emotional attachment to the scene or whatever it is, give us one of each. So we have options to go off of. If you're not sure if this prison guard likes the prisoner or not, give us one where you like them. Give us one where you don't. Obviously with longer auditions, it can be hard to give multiple takes because sometimes there's only, so much time in a day, or there only appears to be one way of doing it. But if you're not sure if one way is right or another, and you haven't had the chance to ask us, and sometimes we don't know the answer. Sometimes we don't know what's going to hit with the team. So give us the options, because then if we decide to send one out and they say, oh, no, everybody here is too serious, we want more comedic, we can go back and say, oh, they gave us a second take of this, would you like to see? And and then there's options. But not all casting directors will ask for multiple takes, not all casting directors will accept multiple takes, but for me, I'd say throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And so those are a couple things. Just generally have an opinion have a point of view. Don't try and be too general. Like a lot of times when an actor is not sure what's right and what's wrong for a scene, they will just give me, I'm covering all my bases neutral. And that is the least interesting acting to watch. So the more you can have a strong and wrong perspective on the scene, if your character has an inside joke with another character and you don't know the context for it, because of course you don't, you only have this one scene that we gave you, give yourself context for that inside joke. Because even if the Christmas tree incident means to them, oh, I decorated the Christmas tree wrong and mom yelled at me. But in your brain, the Christmas tree incident is, I put live candles on the tree and it went up in flames. Like, it's still going to give interesting acting. And that is directable to say, oh, no, don't give us that big of a hit on the Christmas tree incident, or your perspective on the Christmas tree incident is not horror, it is, sadness or whatever it is. We've at least seen that you can act something. You know?
Yeah. Do you think because of your background in acting, you're able to kind of like clock that in actors, be like, oh?
I would like to think so. I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I can tell when it's not specific and when you're not actually thinking about anything. And you're just giving me lines and giving me emotion that you think is for this scene. But if you actually have a thought that's motivating that fear, that sorrow, that even if it's not correct for the script, you don't know the script. So just act for me. Show me very specific things that mean something to you.
That is such fantastic advice. And like, you just answered like 80 of the listener questions in one, because so many people, I think because so much of this is out of our control, right? And I think we are, as humans, just be like, what can I control? I can control my backdrop. Oh, they didn't like me because it was blue instead of gray, and this casting house only likes blue backdrops. Oh, they didn't like it because I wore a gray top and I need to wear a black one because this casting house only likes black on its actors. And like, this is what we can control and it's not our fault. But I think that's what that is, I think, gives us such a freedom.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is the fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can then, if you're deciding for yourself what the Christmas tree incident is, you can give yourself 3 takes of it and see which one has the strongest impact and just give us that. So you can give us like, oh, the Christmas tree went up in flames and no one was hurt and it's funny. Oh, the Christmas tree went up in flames and burned down the entire house and we're all homeless now. Oh, the Christmas tree, I didn't decorate it wrong and mom was annoyed with me. Oh my God, typical. You can give each of those takes and see which just gives you the strongest, most impactful audition on the other side. Because, you can try it. That's your time to play. And that's, I understand that actors are getting sometimes hundreds of auditions in a week and are exhausted, but if you have the time to play and are able to, just try some different things and, become your own. I mean, actors often don't know their best take because you're looking for like a specific, like, oh, I really liked that single tear here, that single tear may not have come in your most impactful take, but because you're watching for that specific detail, you're maybe not sending us your most interesting work. So oftentimes I'll get like take 1, take 2, alternate, backup, don't use this take, and then take 3, the alternate, don't use this take is actually the most interesting to watch. So, just if you've got friends who can give you feedback, get your friends to give you feedback because they're going to also not be looking for, oh, my eyelash was doing a wonky thing, or I didn't like the way my hair fell in that take, all the things that, again, we think are going to make a difference, but they actually don't at the end of the day. I remember one of my favorite auditions that booked the role it was early pandemic days when, Zoom auditions were new. And this person's laptop computer was quite possibly the worst laptop computer I've ever seen in my life, like just grainy and pixelated. And the feedback came, I think this is a great audition, but I cannot see this person. Can you please have them do it again? And so the actor did it again as a self-tape and was clear and in frame, and it was an incredible audition and booked the role. So, you know, if your backdrop is wrinkled or folded over, like that's all going to be secondary to incredible acting. And that's what people are going to look for, is just, you know, oh, their hair was terrible, but guess what? We have hair people on set who are going to fix that for them. They're going to put a wig on them if it's really, really bad, you know, all those things.
Yeah, well, and I like what you said, strong and wrong, right? Because I think so often we forget that there is a director who will direct us in the direction that we want to go. Yeah, that's what director is.
Yeah. Because your job on set is to act. Your job is not to be, I mean, as much as auditioning means you are a technician, you are a hair and makeup person, you are all of these things. These are all things that someone else will be taking care of on the day. So your primary focus should be the acting.
Yes.
And show us good acting.
You had mentioned, and this is a listener question that I always get when I'm like, I'm talking to a casting director. What do you want to know? Always. And you mentioned it, so I'm going to ask, is there, I hate this question, is there a blacklist?
I don't think so. I think there's a list of actors who, you know, people don't enjoy working with. And I think that is part of your job as well. I think especially in callback sessions, you're not only showing how well you act the scene, but you're showing what kind of person you are to work with. And I think that often plays into who is cast. Not always. I mean, sometimes the best person is not the best actor, and the best actor is not the best person. But I think, especially if you're, you know, in this Canadian industry where you're not necessarily going to be playing the lead in Wicked, but you're going to be Munchkin number 4 who is on set for a week, what kind of person are you going to be to work with in between scenes? That I think plays into a lot of the casting decisions. Because if you've got 6 people who all act it brilliantly, but one is just like going to be a great time on set, no problems, all those things. So I think there is, obviously, I mean, if you're an unsafe person, we're going to try and avoid stamping our names on you as an actor, because I think it's important. I mean, some of our shows will even ask us, you know, do you know this person, because they're going to be in sensitive situations. We do a lot of heavy dramas with a lot of sensitive content, and is this person going to be safe for our lead actors to be around in these kinds of situations? So, you know, those kinds of things can make a difference, but I don't think there's necessarily like a blacklist. I mean, not that I've seen anyhow. So, I mean, I'm still quite low level, but from where I've seen it, you know.
Yeah.
Before I don't think the things that people think will land them on a blacklist necessarily do.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like, oh, I've been blacklisted because I'm always late with my tapes. No, like if you're turning in good tapes 3 days late, they may not go out for that role, but we're still going to try and get you in for a future role, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the like, oh, I didn't do a good solid audition, they're never going to bring me back. Or, oh, I remember thinking this when I first started, like I had my very first audition for like a big Hallmark movie. And this was, 3 years ago when I'm a baby actor, still a baby actor. And I was like, oh no, they're never going to bring me back. I look back at that tape, it was terrible. It's like, no, like, I think we forget so often that the relationship between casting director and actor is like a championing one.
Yes.
As opposed to a battle where I'm the casting director. You all remember that we are also human and we get better over time. And it's like, no, I'm not going to just be like, one and you're done.
Yeah.
Like, from every casting director I've talked to, so often they just want to like shake actors and be like, we are here for you because we want to make you look good because that also makes us look good.
Yeah, like my boss and I have had conversations about needing moisture wicking shirts for callback sessions because we sweat so much because we are nervous for our actors. Like, we refer to you all as our actors. You are our children. We care about you. We want you to succeed. We're like, oh, we are gunning for you in this room, and we just want you to do your best work. And the number of times we'll say, well, can we just send you like another take that they've done before? Because I know they can do what you're asking for. They just got nervous in this moment. Or, there's so many, just things we do behind the scenes because we want our babies to get the job. And we sweat a lot about it because it's very nerve-wracking.
Is there anything else you wish actors knew about your job?
I mean, I did say that, not having your tape in on time doesn't blacklist you, but it does make our lives easier if your tape is in on time. Because I remember there was one day where I was waiting on a tape and I had to go to the theater that night. My job ends at 7. It was a 7:30 showtime. The tape came in at like 7:10. So I had my laptop at the theater. I was standing at the bar emailing out this person's tape at like 7:29 so I could go into the theater. And just the more you can meet the deadlines, I mean, the better chances you have. Because if we send out, 10 tapes day 1 and your tape comes in day 3 and they find someone they like on day 1, then that's it. The role is cast. We're not going to send you out once they've chosen someone. So I think, asking all the questions, reading all of the notes. I mean, I send so many notes with every single thing about how to, run Zoom, how to turn off your noise compression if you have to scream in an audition. Like, there are so many notes. Accents. Don't do an accent if we don't ask you for an accent. And learn your standard American. Your outs and about, sorry. That is the hugest thing because there's a lilt too to Canadian accents and a crispness to our diction that is very un-American. And those things will sometimes make us seem too theatrical or too like, no New York lawyer is going to be out and abouting. So those are things that can just immediately get you, like, even if your audition is great, that accent just sometimes kills you because it immediately takes you out of whatever scene you've prepared. So I'd say get your standard American accent on point. It is the hardest thing to do because we're so used to the diphthongs. But the key for me, anyhow, in learning to do it, because I lived in the States and was very much like, tell me how to get rid of this accent. Actually, matching vowels is really helpful because we did a lot of choral singing in there. And, a chorus line, kiss today goodbye, the sweetness and the sorrow. Not sorrow, sorrow. So sing along and match your vowels with Americans singing. That very much helps. But also the diphthong, the OU. Pretend there is no you there. It's about. There is no about. No diphthong. That's the American.
I remember like trying to release it from my body, which is so hard because not only did I grow up in the west coast of Canada, so I got the west coast, which is a bit more drawly, but then I spent 4 very formative years on the east coast, which is very aggressive Canadian. But I was told, I remember when I was learning standard American, that everything is just lazy in your mouth. Just make everything as lazy as possible, and that we have such what is it called? Upspeak, right?
Yes.
Like everything, just be that confident person. Sound rude. Just really try and sound rude. I promise you're not.
And Canadians do, I'm still speaking, I'm done. Americans do, and I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done. Yeah. So just all of those little bits of trying to get the Canadian out of your body, it just changes how you're perceived immediately.
I wait for the blessed day, which will never occur, when they're like, we would like to hear a standard Canadian accent, please.
Mm-hmm.
Americans, you got to match these Canadians because we
Yeah.
want
Right?
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
But
one
even
day.
things set here, they don't care. They leave the American accents in. Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah. But yeah, so always give a standard American accent unless you're asked for something else.
Mm-hmm.
I remember once I was in an audition with an actor, fantastic actor, but really strong outs and abouts. And I said, oh, just watch that where you gave a really strong out. And they just changed the dialogue entirely to avoid the word out. And I was like,
Yes.
I mean, don't do that. But like, it made me laugh that was their instinct. Like, I know I can't beat this, so I'm just going to switch that word. No, we're no longer shouting. We're yelling.
We're yelling. That's brilliant.
Oh, that's another thing. If you're auditioning for a writer-director, don't change their writing because they're gonna, they want it as they've written it almost always. Yeah. So word perfect if it's a writer-director.
Okay. I have one more listener question before I have a couple more fun questions. The listener questions are always very pragmatic. Does the agency you're represented with, does that matter? Like levels of agencies, A tier, B tier?
It can give you, if you were being recommended an actor by Steven Spielberg, you're going to think more highly of them than an actor recommended by a director who is, but it doesn't mean you won't be seen.
Right.
It means that the work is then on you to do an excellent job and be undeniably good. But it does, the American casting directors will also recognize Canadian agencies at this point. And will say, oh, they're with this agency. Okay. So those things have started to become more recognizable. But at the end of the day, having an agent is what matters because that is how you're going to get submitted on most things for casting directors. There's, we get a lot of emails of, hi, I'd like to audition for your project. Probably not going to work because often those are from Americans and we only hire Canadians for the most part. But also just it says to me that you don't have an agent doing your work. Yeah. Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, as long as you have an agent, you're gonna get your foot in the door, invite casting directors out to see your theater. I go to see a lot of theater. If you don't feel like you're getting the opportunity for the big roles that you want to be seen for, invite them to see you do a big role. Put on a play and invite us to see you do your big role, because, I remembered an actor that I had seen in 2017 in a play and said, I think she's really right here. And she ended up booking the number 3 on a series. And it's just get yourself, how you show up when you show up is what matters. So if you're only being seen for barista, which barista acting is hard, being able to, be natural, like those small actor roles with one line where it's like, oh my God, nurse is the hardest thing to cast because I'm sure as a doctor, like you're not, oh my God, we have a code blue. Like, no, but everyone wants to have their emotional experience, but that is not how you would behave as a doctor, which is why often people who are real life doctors and nurses get hired for nurse and doctor roles because they know that they're, calling off terms that they've said 1,000 times in their life and not having an emotional experience about, I mean, obviously you care about your patients, but you're not having a major emotional experience about every single emergency that comes past you.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
so those
funny.
roles are the hardest to do I think, because pitching the degree of emotion you have, pitching the degree of interest you have in the opinions you have about the people around you. You know, all those things are so hard to do with one line. But yeah, so if you're only getting seen for those and you don't feel like you're able to break through that, invite us out to see other things.
And then you get to be in IMD Boaz. IMDb Boaz.
You're in my Rolodex of actors. Yeah, I've literally called theater companies before and said, look, I can't find this actor in my database of actors. I don't know if they have an agent. Can you ask them if you can pass me their email address so I can have them audition for this role? Because I think they'd be right here based on what I saw them do in your show. Please, here, give them my email address. Here you go. Like, have them reach out to me. Here is where I work. Here is like proof that I'm not a crazy person. Just, I would like to see them act, please. And so those things can make a huge difference, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do have to. It's funny, speaking of like the barista roles and the nurse roles, right? Because whenever there's like a medical show or a medical role that comes out inevitably, and I feel very honored, I get inundated with people asking me questions. Can you help me with this? Can you tape with me? Can you do this? I'm like, sure, maybe I should start my own like self-taping company, be like doctor and nurse roles only, because that's something I can help you with. But yeah, the number one thing I always mention is exactly what you said. It's like, even though I think as actors, we so want to be like, this is my chance.
Yeah, let me give you everything.
I'm going to give you everything I want. This is Robin Cook casting. I need to, And then it's like, no, you are the nurse here who has been doing this every day for 20 years. This is your job. There's no emotion. And I think about the joke about doctors and nurses being like totally like, no, we're just going to go in and do our thing because they've just done it so many times. There's no emotion here. The emotion is for the like family members who are 1 and 2 on the call sheet being like, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, our job is to just push the scene along. Be like, sir, can you move out of the way, please?
Yeah. And
I need to save this person's life.
And even as a doctor, if you do have emotions about the thing, it's not going to benefit your job to experience them and show them in that moment.
Yes. It's so interesting.
So if you need to have emotions about, if your backstory is that, you know, your mother has just died of a heart attack and there's a heart attack in front of you on the table, remember that you are saving your emotions about that for the car ride home.
Yes.
Right? So don't put them in the scene, please.
Love it. I remember like one of my very first acting classes. This is such an aside, sorry. But it's like, what is your purpose here as like usually the Canadian actor who's hired to be barista number 2? Your job is to move the scene along, not to win an Academy Award for barista number 2.
Yeah.
Move it along.
But then conversely, when you're used to being an actor who is in for barista number 2, remember that when you're in for something with a larger arc, to give it more and to be specific and be interesting. You know, I think there's a thing where Canadian actors feel like wallpaper and they get used to acting like wallpaper. And remember that when the role is not wallpaper, please don't be wallpaper.
Great advice. Great advice.
Take a big swing. I mean, give us a wallpaper take too. Like if you feel like you've gone too big on your wild out there choice, then give us a wallpaper take. But like the scenes we're going to remember are the ones where you like give us something different. And even if it's not right for this role, I'm going to remember you in 6 months' time when a role comes up and we need a woman who did the entire scene while laughing hysterically. I think that's a bad choice. But, you know, if that becomes a thing, then that is a role that, you know, I'll remember you for in the future.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, because an impact is an impact, even if it's not right here. Like, one of my favorite actors came in for a role. They weren't right for it. Someone else was more right for it. Let's say that. But the showrunner said, please, we think this person is great. Please remember them later in the season. And another role came up later in the season. And I seen them do a similar thing in theater and said, hey, remember so-and-so said, bring them back. I think this is the place where we bring them back. And then they booked like a 5-episode recurring role based on, just we will remember you if you do impactful art. And every audition is an audition for every single thing. Like if I'm casting a solo project and you've come in to audition for, girl 3, but you have a look that I think is right for this thing over here, then I'm going to bring you in for this thing over here that is the, number 2 on the call sheet for this film I'm casting on the side,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just show up and do your best work whenever you can because you're auditioning for literally everything.
Do you have a favorite moment in your career so far?
I really love my job, so it's hard to pick a favorite. Like,
You can tell. It like radiates out of your face.
I love watching. I mean, my favorite is always getting to tell my friends when they've booked the role. Like, 'cause, as an ex-actor, a lot of my friends are actors.
Mm.
Getting to tell them, good news is my absolute favorite thing in the world. I mean, usually their agent gets to tell them the good news, but still I will be like sitting sobbing when the email comes in that they're the choice for the role and like, and now I'm sending them for approval and network says they're good and it's so good, now I get to tell them. So, all these things, but I don't know, I love all of it's hard to give specifics because so many of them are bound by NDAs, but there's so many opportunities when I get to see, okay, so we were working on a drama series and there was this role that was sort of the quirky role and an actor did a brilliant audition, came back for a callback, did a brilliant callback, and the director said, I don't know, can you give it just like a little more comedy? And I know this actor to be a Second City actor and was like, here we go. And just watching that transformation where every line was suddenly different. The scene still had the same meaning, but every single line had a different intention, a different punch up, a different, just watching the magic of that happening in real time is the coolest thing to see, and getting to see a director go, holy crap, that's, I didn't expect that from this person because they haven't seen it, but knowing that that's coming is just like the greatest feeling. And anytime our children get chosen for things, it's like the most exciting in the world.
Oh, it's so awesome. Do you have anything you're looking forward to coming up in 2025?
We're working on a lot of projects. We're working on a comedy right now, which is rare for our office, which makes me very happy because I love getting to work on these incredible projects, but after a while, watching 80 people do the same traumatically dramatic scene in a row, it starts to weigh on you. So when you get to switch it up with something that's a little more lighthearted, it's always nice.
That's something, and I know I'm keeping you a bit here, but that's something that I never really thought of until I'd heard this from you before. The projects your casting house tends to cast are very heavy, and we always talk about like, oh yes, as an actor, it's so hard to like, and I'm saying this snarkily, but like, it's so hard to like give everything to a tape in a traumatic scene, send it out into the void, and auf Wiedersehen, darling. But for the casting director to also be there sitting and witnessing that, I know I personally had never thought about the impact it has on somebody like yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sensitive bunny at the best of times, so it does hit. But there's days where I just sit and cry, and for hours because I'm just watching, these horrible things that are being, I'm lucky to get to watch really incredible actors all day, and when actors are really incredible, it's really hard to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it's a really emotional or really traumatic scene, because sometimes it's so visceral. And I mean, you're getting my top marks as I'm sobbing, but I'm still sobbing watching you do it. Yeah, it's
like, and
brutal.
another one.
And
And
another
another
one. Okay.
one.
Take a breath, drink some coffee. Okay, here we go again. Yeah, it's it's it can be a lot, but I mean, it's worth it when you get the absolute right person who's going to do. And sometimes, you know, I always say I really enjoy watching the struggle not to cry rather than the crying, because sometimes that is even more heartbreaking. Um, Watching someone who is clearly having this emotional, like, so, I mean, this is a sidebar. Don't worry if you can't cry as an actor, because sometimes that struggle not to cry is infinitely more interesting to watch than like a full catharsis. I mean, I feel like that was something I was taught in theater school, that like when you have the full breakdown, sometimes that robs your audience of the opportunity to have the breakdown, but the fight not to cry about it is what makes it really interesting to watch and allows the audience to have their own cathartic moments. So, you know, don't stress about the tears if you can't make them happen. There's tear sticks if they want a tear.
Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
I would say just remember that in my office anyhow, everything you do gets watched. And we, like, some days when I sit down with my coffee and see what the list of names that are on my docket for me to watch first in a day, like, that is absolute joy that I get to like start my day with watching this person act. And like, these three people are not household names, but these are the people that when I see their names come across my desk, I'm like, yes, I'm rearranging my schedule because I want to watch this tape because I know it's going to be fantastic. And you know, there's not just three, there's literally dozens. And I love then also being surprised by people that I don't know as well or don't know can do this. Or, you know, we needed someone who played cello, so we brought in this actor who normally only comes in for here's your coffee to do this huge dramatic scene, and holy crap, look what they can do with a huge dramatic scene, you know. So also develop your special skills, because you never know when that special skill is going to get you in the door for something that's larger than usual. Yeah, it's so just, yeah, remember that you're not acting to avoid. Even if your work doesn't get on screen, your audition is someone's favorite audition and is the thing that they think of regularly, and just is blown away by the things you can do. So, yeah, you're special to me.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you, Kelly, for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy and insane schedule, as we all just heard, to share your story with myself and with my listeners. Bleh. I so appreciate you and everything you do for actors. We've said it time and time again on this show. Whenever I speak with casting directors, the biggest thing that we don't understand as actors is how much casting directors love actors. And if you watched the episode, you could just see it on Kelly's face. Their love of their job, their love of actors shines through. You can hear it in their voice too. I mean, come on, let's be honest. They are there championing us. We are their children. And it is so exciting when we bring them incredible work. So keep bringing them incredible work and follow their advice. Strong and wrong. Have an opinion. Have a belief. Just do the extra work to have extra things going on in your brain about your character. That is the fun part of this job. Okay, now I'm just rambling. I apologize. I hope you will all tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!